Hey guys, this is Ray with Double R Diesel. Welcome back to the shop and to the channel. And it's time for another question and answer session video. And guys, once again, let me just stop and tell you that I greatly appreciate your support. I greatly appreciate you chiming in and making comments, making suggestions. You know, it's good to be able to talk about things. You know, I can't do a lot of diesel tuning right now, but I can offer you knowledge and my opinion, and I enjoy doing it. So I greatly appreciate you following along and all your comments and your questions. So getting right into it. So let me see what we've got here. So somebody says, hey Ray, glad to see the channel is growing again. I have a 17 Ram 3500 tuned by you, but I have a question regarding your latest announcement about being able to retune transmissions for previous customers. Do you offer Aisin tuning? Some of the other platforms are offering it now, but I like my MM3 and really don't want to purchase another tuner. That's a very good question. Matter of fact, so I do know, as you might be aware, that Aisin tuning has been offered. I think it's through EasyLink. I'm not sure if it's through HP Tuners yet or not, but I know it's done through EasyLink, and I know that Corey Willis and there may be a few others doing it. What I've honestly seen is mixed reviews. Some people say it's great. Some people say no, it's not really worth anything, but that's to each their own. What I have found out over the years when it comes to transmission tuning with 68 RFEs and Ford transmissions for that matter, what one person likes, the other person will hate. What one person hates, the other person will like. So it's really all over the place, and transmission tuning is really perception based, whether you like it or not. But going back to the question, I have talked to the owner of MM3 Power this week on the phone, and we talked about this, and basically it's this. So their software engineers have to determine, whether it's worth the investment, the time, the money to get everything in place to do it, because it would take time and money on their part. And they really don't know. And you would say, well, there's just so many Aisin trucks out there that, some guys would like to have tuned transmission. Yes, there are. And I made the argument that there are, but in the grand scheme of things, the Aisin's no longer being used. Everything's going over to the ZF transmission. And, other guys are already tuning it. So is it going to be worth their time and effort? Because their resources are not unlimited as far as developing new stuff. And one of the things that we talked about was with MM3 was, could or would they at some point want to upgrade their device or come out with a cheaper device that would allow guys to tune their truck, maybe perhaps without a monitor, or something that is cloud-based that could be operated Bluetooth via their phone, kind of like EasyLink is. And, that would require resources and time and money on their parts to develop something like that. So they're kind of weighing out, if they're going to spend money and invest in the future, where to put that money. Should they put it in a new device, or should they put it into developing like Aisin transmission tuning? Let me know what you guys think, and I'll pass it on to MM3 Power. I'll let them watch the video and look at the comments as well. And, the overwhelming majority of what you guys say will, really dictate what they may or may not do. So let me know your opinions. Is Aisin tuning worth the time and the effort for you guys, or would it be better to develop a cloud-based, phone control-based device that's cheaper? So let me know your thoughts on that, and I'll pass it along to MM3 Power. Somebody was asking about filter back exhaust. So on a 2020 model truck that I've since sold, I put a filter back exhaust on it, and all a filter back exhaust is simply what the name says. You're replacing the exhaust from the diesel particulate filter, or in this case on that particular truck, actually the SCR unit, back to the back of the truck. So basically it's nothing more than just a fancy looking tailpipe assembly. Is it worth the money? For sound, no. For power, no, not on an emissions compliant truck, because it's not doing anything for exhaust flow really. If you got an old tattered, beat up tailpipe and you want to replace it with something that looks a little more aggressive and looks better, absolutely. Get you a filter back exhaust. We sell some MagnaFlow pieces, and they're good pieces. But it's not worth anything other than looks as far as a filter back exhaust goes. Granted, we're not talking about deletes. I mean, obviously, if you could delete and you put a free flow exhaust on the truck that takes away all that stuff, it's worth removing a restriction. You get more power and you get more sound that way. But since we can't do deletes, it's kind of out of the question as far as I'm concerned. That brings me into emissions compliant tuning. Somebody was asking about emissions compliant tuning on a 5th gen Ram. Was it, how much power, was it a good daily driver tune? What would they gain from it by going with one, in our case, one of our emissions compliant tunes? So let me tell you this. I've got a video already. If you go back, I can put a link in the description where I had a 2020 model truck and I tuned it with our emissions compliant tuning, and I put it on the chassis dyno. Basically, I can increase the horsepower, wheel horsepower, about 120 more over stock, and I can do it gradually, with different shift on the fly settings, and add up to 120 horsepower and still keep the DPF happy. Beyond that, you're really getting to where you're putting a lot of load on the DPF and you fill it up too quick, and it's really not worth any extra power for what, the possibility of creating more stress on the DPF and SCR unit and regen frequency. And that brings me to another point. So with emissions compliant tuning, I can give you up to 120 more horsepower, and I can give you about 200 foot-pounds more torque. And that is enough to feel, and it makes the truck a whole lot more lively, no matter what kind of transmission you got. But when it comes to the emission system, one thing that I can tell you that is a great benefit, and I know a lot of you guys with 5th gen trucks are aware of this issue, is frequent regens. I see a lot of 19 and newer trucks. Don't see so many of the older models, but a lot of the 19 and newer trucks constantly going back to the dealer with excessive regeneration cycles. I mean, going into doing a regen like every 50 or 100 miles, DPF filling up too quickly, going into limp mode because the DPF is full, that sort of thing. And sometimes it's caused by aftermarket intakes. Sometimes it's caused by aftermarket air filters. Basically anything that could disrupt the airflow going into the engine, the computer can't compensate enough sometimes to maintain a proper air-fuel ratio. And when the air-fuel ratio gets thrown off, then the truck starts producing more smoke. Obviously you can't see it, but it's producing more smoke, and it fills up the DPF quicker, and that causes frequent regeneration cycles, and it causes the DPF to fail more quickly. Going back to my tuning, when I tune a customer's truck, I custom tune it, okay? It's not a one-size-fits-all tune. So if you're having frequent regeneration problems, I can set you up with a custom tune that's, if it's an air-fuel ratio issue for whatever reason, I can custom tune your truck, emissions compliant, and optimize your air-fuel ratio, whatever the case may be, individually, so that your truck starts running a little bit cleaner and the DPF is not having to work as hard. I've seen a case where a guy was pretty much filling up his DPF every 100 miles. And having to go do it and having a regeneration cycle. After I tuned his truck and it went through a few cycles, it went back to normal and actually got to a point now where it's going 700-800 miles or more and only doing a regeneration cycle based upon a time cycle. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, guys, but even if your DPF is staying pretty clean, your truck will automatically regen after so many hours of engine operation if it hasn't had a regeneration cycle. So it's going to regen no matter what, but you'd rather have it regened based on that time cycle versus an actual DPF loading issue. So you can get more power with our emissions compliant tuning. You can get less regeneration cycles. through the process of optimizing air-fuel ratio. If things are off, yes, it can pick your fuel economy back up some. And I can tune for a 68 RFE transmission right now, and that all that does help. It makes a big difference. What else we got here? Talking about transmission tuning. Somebody was asking, I've got your tuning on a 2017 Ram. Can you lock out 6th gear until it hits 70? Absolutely. Now, when I set up shift points, it's not based upon a speed of the vehicle going down the highway. Shift points are based upon throttle position and output shaft speed of the transmission. At least that's the way it's set up on these Dodges with the 68. So I can tune it so that, you know, it will not go into 6th gear until you're going at least 70. I can, you know, it takes a few tweaks and, you know, a little bit of work to do it, but I can custom tailor your shift points to where it will keep it out of 6th gear until a predetermined speed, if that's what you want. You can do it for regular mode, and you can do it separately for tow haul mode. However you want to do it, I can set it up, and that's one of the things that I'm willing to do with my tuning. What else we got here? Oh yeah, so somebody was asking about, you know, the transmission tuning, and said specifically that they had a RevMax valve body. So I wanted you guys to know that we are a RevMax dealer. I can sell you RevMax valve bodies. I can sell you RevMax torque converters. I can sell you RevMax complete transmissions and parts. So if you need something, look at our website. We've got quite a few things listed already. But if you see something, if you know that they make something that we don't have listed, we can still get it for you. Hit me up. I can get you a custom quote and invoice sent out to you. But we're also a certified RevMax tuner. So if you've got a RevMax transmission, we can give you RevMax approved transmission tuning for your transmission. And guys, I know RevMax offers tuneless versions of for valve bodies and tuneless versions of their complete built transmissions. And yes, you can run that with a bone stock tune, but it is not as good as having a proper tune and having it tuned for a RevMax transmission. You can, not only are you custom tailoring your line pressure and your line pressure gains for the most efficient shift, most comfortable shift, but you also can change shift points, which is also a benefit as well. We are an installer. I've got a shop out here. You've seen, you know, some work that I've done. So if you're needing a transmission installed, I can do that as well. So please, if you got any transmission needs, hit me up, let me know. Perhaps I can help you out somehow, some way. Somebody was asking and made a comment, said that modern pickups are more reliable, powerful, and fuel efficient than their non-emission legacy vehicles. Well, I will say that yes, from the factory horsepower wise, the newer diesels are more powerful. Reliable? No. I would argue that the non-emissions diesels, with their lack of having to keep up with an EGR, a DPF, and a SCR unit, are more reliable. It's just, I don't see how you can say that one with all this emission stuff on it's more reliable. It's not, because 9 times out of 10, when a modern diesel truck goes to the dealer for any kind of service or any kind of problems, it's usually emission system related. Okay. Yes, the newer trucks are tuned from the factory and make more power, but reliability, no. And as far as fuel efficiency, they're not bad. The new ones are not bad, but the older trucks, the early common rail, like the earlier common rail Cummins, or even some, you know, the older mechanical injected Cummins, when they were properly running, got better fuel mileage than these newer trucks. I mean, I'm sorry, but the new, other than maybe factory horsepower, is not better than the old, in my opinion. Okay, somebody was asking about me doing a video series about teaching you guys how to tune. And the reason why is because as of right now, I can't offer, you know, certain types of tuning. And you know, the whole premise there is if you learn to tune on your own, then you can do what you want to do. Yes, you can. And they were asking me about, you know, doing that, and I said that I probably would. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna go about doing it. I could put it on my website to where you had to pay for service, and then you would get access to instructional videos. Somebody mentioned doing it on Patreon, and I wanted to ask you guys about Patreon because I've never used it. If you know about Patreon, comment, let me know what your thoughts about it. Apparently, it is a social media platform in which you can charge people to view what your content on a weekly or monthly basis and get access to information that way. I've never used it, so tell me what your thoughts are on that. I would greatly appreciate that. Let's see. Okay, somebody asked the question. They've said they got my 2018 Ram 3500 has your tuning and needs a new ABS module. The new module has to have reestablished communications with ECM. Can this be done with your tune in the ECM? They should be able to do that because the ABS module is separate from the ECM. Yes, it does have to communicate with the ECM, but they should be able to reprogram an ABS module regardless of what's in the ECM, because the MM3 tuner itself is actually capable of programming the ABS module. It can't program a blank ABS module. So like if you have to get your ABS module replaced, it can't program the information on a blank module. But when you change the speedometer calibration through the tire size menu on the MM3 tuner, that actually is programming your ABS module. And obviously, you know, you can do that with our ECM tuning in place. So really, programming the ABS module has nothing to do with anything that might already be established on the ECM. But if a dealer says, no, we can't program a new ABS module on your truck without it having a stock tune on it, well, fine. Let them put a stock tune on it. As long as you've got your tuner, when they get through programming whatever to your truck, you can take your tuner and program over what a dealer may or may not have done. Okay, so always remember you've got that option. And I know this brings up another question. Some people say, well, if you go to the dealer and have like the 67A recall done in which they reprogram your truck for emissions purposes, that's going to lock your truck out from being tuned again. No, not with the MM3. It could be with some other platforms, but with the MM3, they program through a different protocol than what some of the others like EFI Live and EasyLink are doing. And therefore, any new software update may try to do to lock you out, the MM3 can get around that. Okay. Somebody said that they needed a new monitor for their MM3. Do we sell replacement monitors? No, we do not. We don't have individual parts set aside to be sold for an MM3. You can contact MM3 Power and get a price on individual replacement parts. But what I can offer and what I do have is blank tuners on our website. And these would have would be a brand new unit with a brand new SD card with the latest firmware update, but it wouldn't have any tuning on it. So if you're a prior customer of mine and your tuner is on the fritz and you need whatever, you can buy a blank tuner from me and I can, supply that to you and you can put your old tunes on that new tuner. So that is an option if you need a new tuner. I do have those, and that's why I got them up there, so you guys can get a new device if you need it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, so somebody was asking about the new trucks, the 25 model trucks. What did I know about them? My thoughts about them, and so on and so forth. So I have not driven a 25 model truck yet. My local dealer has a few on the lot now for sale. I haven't actually been by to look at them. I'm like you. I have, what I know about them is what I've seen online, and what I have seen is You know, they appear to be a very nice truck. I think the ZF transmission is definitely a win for everybody. They're a German-based company, and they've been making good transmissions for years. And I think that what they're offering now for the heavy-duty trucks is a winner with the 8-speed. What I've seen people post online about how they shift and how they perform, they seem to do very well, and I wouldn't expect any less. What are my thoughts about the new Cummins, the new updated 6.7 liter Cummins that's in the 25 model trucks? Well, I have mixed thoughts. I don't like the cartridge style filters in which you have to open up and replace the elements. I'd rather have a spin-on filter. But you know, it is what it is there. They have outboard injectors versus inboard injectors as far as the fuel injector is concerned. And what do I mean by that? Well, the early common rail 6.7 and 5.9 liter trucks, if you know anything about it, if you had to access the fuel injectors, you had to take the valve cover off to get to the fuel injectors. They're down inside the valve cover where the valve springs and everything in the rockers and all that stuff's at. And they stay bathed in oil. Is where the new 6.7s and the 25 model trucks, the fuel injectors are on the outside of the valve cover. They are not bathed in oil. So my thoughts is this. Yes, it's easier to service them because you don't have to pull the valve covers off to get them to work on them. But they are exposed to the outside, whereas when they were inside the valve cover, they stay protected. So, you know, when you service them, you're going to have to be careful about making sure everything's clean, because you could have contaminants built on the top side of the engine. You pull an injector and trash fall down in the cylinder. So you're going to have to make sure everything's really, really clean when you go to working on them. As far as longevity, I mean, time will tell how, you know, them being on the outside of the valve cover, you know, how long they'll last compared to their inboard predecessors. I will say this, you know, clean fuel is everything when it comes to fuel systems on this truck, whether it's the high pressure fuel pump or the fuel injectors. You got to keep clean fuel in your truck, and you got to change your fuel filters. If you don't change your fuel filters, if you buy trashy fuel, then it's going to wreck your fuel system sooner than later. What else here? So going back to the 19 through 24 model trucks, my thoughts, somebody was asking about the lifters. Unless you just started tuning in and learning about the 6.7 Cummins that are in the 19 and newer model trucks, the problem with those trucks is that Dodge went to a hydraulic roller style tappet lifter versus the anything up to 2018 had a flat tappet solid lifter that was, you know, purely mechanical. Just a simple round bottom tappet with a stem that would work the push rod off the camshaft load. Is where the new ones have a roller on the bottom of it and has a hydraulic lash adjuster built into it. So here's the difference without getting too technical. The old ones, the old lifters, had nothing that could really fail other than just normal parts wear, metal wear over time. But you had to adjust the valve lash periodically. When I'm saying by valve lash, the distance between the end of the rocker and the top of the valve stem. You have to keep a little bit of gap there with a solid lifter setup so that the valves will shut completely when they heat up. When they heat up, metal expands. If you run it with zero lash, once everything got hot, then the valves would never be able to seat and you would lose compression up through the valves. With a hydraulic setup, it keeps a constant tension on the rocker arms, but allows just enough give so that no matter with zero lash there, the valve can still seat and close. So the problem there is twofold with those new hydraulic roller lifters. If something in the guide that keeps that roller parallel with the load on the camshaft, and that thing, if that roller turns ever so slightly, then that'll gouge out the camshaft and tear up the lifter. That's happened. Also, and probably more frequent, is the hydraulic nature of that lifter can fail and cause the lifter to not be able to control valve lash. And what happens is it won't be able to keep it down tight, and you start getting a bunch of clickety-clacky fuss, and it sounds like something's going to tear up. And that's what I see a lot in social media videos. A lot of people will post videos of their 19 or newer truck ticking at idle. In some cases, actually misfiring in idle with a tick, and they say, okay, is this my lifter? Usually it is. But most of the time it's because the hydraulic part of that is not maintaining a proper zero lash setting, which is what you're supposed to have with a hydraulic setup. So the 19 and newer trucks, if you keep them long enough, you're going to have to replace the camshaft and lifter in it. I don't care what kind of oil you put in it, how good you take care of it. It's just something that's going to fail sooner than later, in my opinion. I see some of these trucks go 200 plus thousand miles and they're still running the factory cam and lifters, and that's great, but that's rare. I see quite a few of them with 100,000 miles or less with the camshaft and lifters having to be replaced. So if you got a 19 and newer truck, be prepared to shell out a few $1,000s to get your camshaft and lifter replaced at some point. Hamilton makes a conversion kit in which you can change it over to the old style, and I think having that done is going to cost you probably about $7,000 or $8,000. But if you got a 19 and newer truck and your camshaft and lifters fail, go with the solid conversion kit by Hamilton. Unless you got warranty that's going to cover you putting the factory style hydraulic roller lifters back in with a new camshaft, go with the conversion. If you got warranty, that'll cover it, and if you want to do that, that's fine. But just know that you're going to have to replace your cam and lifters at some point. That's the problem with the 19 and newer trucks. So that brings me to another point in another comment question. If you are in the market for shopping for a new or used Ram with a 6.7 liter Cummins, if you want my opinion on what to get a 4th gen. And what I say by 4th gen, 13 through 18. In my opinion, those are probably the most reliable as far as all the systems goes. Engine, transmission, exhaust emissions components, all those things. Those are the best ones to get. Now, which transmission to get, that's entirely up to you. You can get your Aisin equipped truck. You have to deal with the shift defueling and short shifts in regular mode. But otherwise, they're great transmissions. They hold up well, and you can work them, and they'll keep right on getting it. If you want something that's a little lighter on the feet, then get one with a 68 RFE, which is the most common transmission setup out there as far as being mated with a 6.7 liter Cummins. You can get aftermarket parts to beef up a 68, make it more reliable. You can tune the transmission easily. You can make it perform very well. It's not as durable stock form as the Aisin, but you can, beef it up with aftermarket parts and tuning to make it very nice. So those are your two choices with automatics. Really, depending on your application. If you're going to tow a lot, get an Aisin. If you're going to do mostly unloaded driving and a little bit of towing from time to time, get you a 68. Now, if you don't mind shifting gears and don't mind pressing the clutch pedal and don't mind replacing the clutch with a dual disc clutch at some point, the king of all trucks, in my opinion, is a G56 truck in 13 through 18 model. That's what I've got. I've got a 13 that's got a G56, and I just put a Valera dual disc organic clutch in it. And it made all the difference in the world as far as performance wise. But it's got a great clutch feel and it's got a great engagement. I love them. But if you want the ultimate in reliability, and you don't mind shifting gears, find you a G56 truck, put you a good dual disc clutch in it like a Valera, and call it done. And it'll be there all day long, and you won't have to worry about nothing from then on. But they are some of the most pricey trucks there are on the used market because there's just not many of them out there. So keep that in mind. What else? I think that wraps about up as far as comments. I've had some interesting emails. I've had some guys email me some stuff and talk about some things and from their experiences from working on trucks and shops. And the general consensus is from other people who work on trucks that the modern diesel is a wonderful thing, but the emission systems is the burdensome problem. And generally the main problem, no matter what the platform it is, whether it's Cummins, Duramax, or Power Stroke, when they come into a shop, it's usually emission system related. So that still hammers the argument that when a vehicle gets a lot of excessive miles on it and reaches that quote unquote useful life for the emission systems, I still think that we ought to have the right to be able to repair in whatever means we deem feasible, whether that is replacing parts, removing parts, retuning, deletion, whatever, to make that truck operate so that you can keep going down the road with it. I've had people, some of the comments I've had in previous videos, most people agree that, at some point that you ought to be able to delete your truck. There are a few people that do not agree with it, none whatsoever, and tell me that, I am stupid for what I have done and stupid for what I want to be able to continue doing. And sure, that's your opinion. You've got a right to say that, but I don't think it's stupid. I can make a case. I've made a case before for, both emissions compliance and the option for deleting at some point. I think that's, a win for everybody, including the environment and the truck owner, the fleet owner. Guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. About 30 minutes in, I usually don't want to go over that. Keep the comments coming. I appreciate you guys following along. Feel free to shoot me an email, ray@rrdiesel.com, or comment in the video below. As always, as a reminder, keep sending, making your petitions known to your elected officials about, possible amendments to the Clean Air Act, possible ways to allow us to delete trucks after they reach their useful life, that sort of thing. Keep the heat on your elected officials. They're not going to do anything if you don't bother them. And as always, guys, God bless each and every one of you, and we will see you again real soon.